Howdy folks, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here and happy to report about the Oilers' 8-1 victory of the Florida Panthers to extend the Stanley Cup Final Series to at least 5 games, with game number 5 coming Tuesday night. Now the Oilers remain undefeated while I wear my Skinner jersey, and Skinner is usually very good when I wear my Skinner jersey. I don't often wear it because I don't want to overdo it, but I might have to wear it from every game on out because one loss is all it takes the Oilers for it to be over. But it wasn't over last night, and it was probably the most fun game I've had all playoffs. Actually, no, it was. It was. Because not only was it a Stanley Cup final game, but you got everything from the Oilers, except power play, ironically. The game was seemingly won in the first. Officially, the game was won in the first because the game-winning goal came with 7 minutes and 48 seconds into the game when Adam Henrique scored the Oilers' second goal of the game. But it really felt like the Oilers won it by the efforts of Mattias Janmark, even though I don't name him as a 3-star, though I really wanted to, because he had a shorthanded goal to open the scoring, and then assisted on what would be the game-winning goal. But as you can see, if you skip down below, I named Stuart Skinner as the number 1 star, not only because of his monster stats, incredible play, and lots of really good saves, but his best save of the playoffs, and certainly a absolute Stanley Cup save of the playoffs contender, or at least save of the finals contender. And I say contender because Bobrovsky has a lot of contenders of his own, though none came today. Not a lot came today for it. But after it was 2-1, Carter Verhaeghe had a really great chance of making it 2-2. And sure, at that point it's a tie game, but you're pretty deflated when you blow a lead like that really quickly. Oilers have a 2-minute lead less than 8 minutes in, and then less than 5 minutes later, it's gone. That could be extremely demoralizing, especially when you're already down 3-0 in the series, because the Panthers have a nice pass and shoot play. I don't know if it was a one-timer or a two-timer, but Carter Verhaeghe couldn't get a perfect shot on it. I mention that because people have been saying, well, Verhaeghe couldn't get a perfect shot off of it, so it's not a really good save. What are you talking about? Yes, it is still a really good save. Yeah, Verhaeghe didn't get a perfect puck. It was still a bouncing puck, but it's still a heck of a shot chance, and a chance that most goalies wouldn't save, and no goalie could be expected to make a save, but nonetheless, Skinner goes across the net and makes a marvelous save. Now, Skinner does make a lot of really great saves, but he makes them look easy because he's very good at being in great position. But the negative effect is he's so used to always being in great position, he has a hard time making saves outside of his positioning. And he made 2 this game that were, wow, amazing, and that was one of them. And it was the most memorable moment for me from that game, but part of that is because, well, I was wondering if part of that was because I'm a goalie myself. But Steve Dangle mentioned it in his video of his reviews that to him that was, well, it wasn't really a turning point. Mattias Janmark having 2 points in the game before Florida could score could be considered the turning point, or that shorthanded goal and great play by Connor Brown could be the turning point. But if Verhaeghe had scored there, that would have been the turning point. I mean, sure, Edmonton may still have gone on and win the game, even if Florida tied it there, but it'd be tough. It'd be very tough for the Oilers to win after seeing what they worked for go away just like that. But the Oilers didn't have to worry about that because of that incredible save, which combined with the not combined, but with the Connor Brown assist, makes for one of the best highlights of the night. But there was lots of highlights to go around for the blue and orange, as they would go on to rocket off 1 more goal in the first, 3 more in the second, and I'll talk more about the second period, and 2 more in the third period. Now, I want to go back to the second period. This is where Connor McDavid finally arrives to the Stanley Cup Finals. He's been all right in the Stanley Cup Finals, but he hasn't been McDavid in the Stanley Cup Finals. A lot of that has to do with Alexander Barkov and his line, who ended as a -3 today. Darnell Nurse was a +3, by the way. He's a +4 in the last 2 games, and 3 of those pluses come as being a line mate with Philip Broberg. I've often talked about side tangent. I've also often talked about how I think we'll see a lot better Nurse when we have a better pair mate for him, or line mate, whatever you want to call it, because the best line mate he's had in the last 5 years is Ethan Bear. Ethan Bear is the best line mate Nurse has had since Oscar Klefbom. And to give you an example of how, and this isn't to be a jerk to Ethan Bear, but a good example of how crazy that is, that Ethan Bear at this point right now isn't getting a lot of games. A lot of that has to do with his injuries, but when he is playing bottom 3 minutes, bottom 4 minutes. I wouldn't call him a bottom pairing defenseman yet, but it's hard to tell because he's been injured a lot. But he's at nowhere close to a top pairing defenseman, which he was when he was with Darnell Nurse, because of how great Darnell Nurse was that year, which eventually earned him his $9 million contract, which, in light of how great of a year he had, doesn't seem so bad. It does now, obviously, and it has for a while. But Nurse would have a great game, and he did score one of the goals the Oilers scored in the second period. But the reason I want to bring up the second period isn't because of McDavid. It's because of two events. One is that the Oilers were outshot in the first and the third period. But the Oilers still ended up outshooting the Panthers for the majority of the game because of the second period. Even though the official game winner came in the first, and even though the biggest play came in the first period, it really felt like it was one in the second period. The Florida Panthers, famous for their ability to fight back from anything, didn't look like they were doing much fighting back in the third period. They were, but it just didn't look like it because of what happened in the second period, when the Oilers more than quadrupled Florida's shot total, outshooting them 17-4, scoring 3 goals there, and including chasing Bobrovsky after Darnell Nurse scored with a second shy of the 5-minute mark into the second period. Chasing Sergei Bobrovsky is a very impressive thing to do. Chasing Sergei Bobrovsky in the playoffs is a very impressive thing to do. And chasing Sergei Bobrovsky in the Stanley Cup Finals, very impressive thing to do. Sergei Bobrovsky leaves the game with a very abysmal and inexcusable save percentage of .688. We can talk about how a lot of the goals against that he had were hard ones to stop, sure, but 11 for 16. Not doing so well now. Anthony Stolarz did have a better game, but not by much. He still ended with an .842 save percentage after allowing 3 on the 19 shots, including the Oilers' first power play goal of the series. I've talked a lot about how the moment the Oilers in the game that the Oilers score a power play goal, they will win the game. Because I think that would be the difference maker. The Oilers can play Florida tight enough 5-on-5, but as soon as the Oilers start winning on special teams, and they're winning on the penalty kill, but as soon as they start winning on power play, it's over for Panthers, at least for the game. And while I was right, I was also wrong, because the Oilers didn't win because of their power play. Their power play, though produced a lot of good chances, still struggled. They were 1 for 6, having 11 shots for, so that's less than 2 shots per power play. Though they did finally score from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But they in a way I was right, in a way I was wrong, because the Oilers 5-on-5 and penalty kill was so dominant. The Oilers' penalty kill, though perfect, wasn't their best either. The Oilers allowed 11 shots in the four power plays for the Panthers. It's all right. It's an all right number, but it's not as elite as it was. But at the end of the day, the penalty kill did not allow a goal, and not only had 3 shots for, but as we know, had a goal for. Connor Brown, I think, was in on all 3 of those shots. He had one of them himself, and one of them was his assist to Matthias Janmark. I'm trying to remember if he had the third one. He might as well. We often talk about Gretzky being the greatest scorer on the shorthanded, because I think he had like 11 or 13 shorthanded goals once in a year. And we talked about, well, his ideal line mate on there would be surely Yari Curry, because that's what it was. Maybe it should be Connor Brown. I'm obviously kidding, but while we're here, let's talk about how great Connor Brown is on the penalty kill. He's very good with the defensive stick, gets a lot of takeaways, and he has a lot of burst of speed to take the puck and not kill time by dumping it down, but by handling it, and he usually shoots it. That was something we saw a lot during the regular season. Something I talked a lot about is how he was so obsessed with scoring for understandable reasons that it became a detriment in which he would shoot when he should pass, which is the opposite of an issue guys like McDavid had, who will pass when they should shoot. But anyways, Brown was shooting when he should pass and all that kind of stuff. And this time he had lots of chances to shoot on that first play, but he doesn't. He shows incredible patience. He gets the puck around a Florida defenseman who, in the process, takes out Bobrovsky, so he's able to get a pass off to Janmark, who is almost stopped by Barkov, but not quite. And Barkov couldn't get enough of a stick on the puck, and the puck goes into the net for the first of the 8 goals the Oilers score. It was just an incredible game. And so now I'm talking from a perspective of going forward, because I've talked about the shots, the scoring. I didn't talk about hitting, but that wasn't like a big part of it. Even though Florida had 20 more shots than 20 more hits than the Oilers. I did make a mistake here, but I'll get to that. Even though they had 20 more hits than the Oilers, you could see there was physicality both ways. Obviously, he favored the Panthers, and usually do. Another big point was the face-off. I don't remember the last time the Oilers won more face-offs than they lost in a game. And I've said this like 5-10 times now. The Oilers are a great face-off team. They were like second or third best in the regular season, but ever since the Vancouver series, they've been terrible. It's just, I don't know if it's just like Draisaitl's hit his ceiling or whatever for the year. And McDavid wasn't good. He wasn't good last night. He was 2 for 11. It's inexcusable, but we can look over it considering what else he did. But today, the face-offs the face-off takers for the Oilers were very good. The Oilers won the majority of the face-offs this time around. And then let's go to goaltending. I talked about Skinner. He was amazing. Really was. The Oilers' defense wasn't good enough. And even though you could say it didn't look like the Panthers were trying in the third period, they did have some really good opportunities in that third period. They did get 15 shots in a single period. That's very hard to do. That means you're getting 15 shots in 20 minutes of playtime. And you're doing that against an Oilers team who's actually very good at shot suppression. Very underrated. The Panthers, in that way, did have a good third period. Except for the fact that Skinner had a better third period, and so did Dylan Holloway and Ryan McLeod, who would end up turning around and going to go score on Anthony Stolarz. So now we compare it to the Florida goalies. Is Bobrovsky having a good finals now? Yes, because he's 3-1 in the finals right now still, but everyone was already ready to hand him the Conn Smythe, and then that happens. Maybe, yeah. Anthony Stolarz comes in. I didn't know what to expect from him because the Oilers aren't great against backup goalies. And Anthony Stolarz had like a 925 save percentage in the regular season, but he also only played like 27 games, often against weaker opponents, so it was hard to really gauge. Like, he had a great year, no question, but it was in small sample sizes. Great pads, though. I love his the red pads when he's in the home uniform. So in that sense, I'm hoping he starts. I hope he starts Game 5, not because he'd be easier than Bobrovsky, just because the pads look so good. And Stolarz wasn't able to stop much. He had one notable save where we're like, hey, that was a really good play, but that was it. It's weird to say that was it. He only had one great play. When we say a player or a defenseman had a great play, that usually means they had a good game. But for the goalies, it's like, oh, he only had one or two great plays. That's why we're nuts. If you don't know why I'm a goalie, that's why I said we're. Other notes I wanted to put on in the game as I get into the 3 stars. Evan Rodriguez was the only Panther spared when it came to the plus-minus. He was the only player non-negative. He finished as a 0. Matthias Janmark did not get in as a 3-star, as I said earlier. I really wanted to urge him in there because he had a goal and assist, which is less than what 2 of the guys had of the 3 stars. But those were really impressive goals and assists. He did end as a +3. Almost 15 minutes of ice, which included almost 15 minutes of ice time, which included almost 2.5 minutes, over 2.5 minutes of shorthanded time. But I did land on my 3 stars of being Dylan Holloway. Love Dylan Holloway. I love Dylan Holloway a lot. That's actually another story of the game is Broberg and Holloway. Their emergence during the playoffs. Holloway did emerge to an extent during the regular season, and his chemistry with the team has only improved with each game. I think he is at 73 hits right now in the playoffs, which is second among the Oilers. He also had 2 blocks today, and in his 12 and a half minutes of ice time, he scored 2 goals, had an assist, and was a +3. Second star was Connor McDavid. He scored his first goal of the Stanley Cup Finals, and he erupted for 3 more assists, which breaks a Gretzky record for most assists in a single postseason. It's a Sportsnet loves their stats, and I get it. I love my stats too. They go a little overboard, but hey, I love my stats. So of all the stats that Sportsnet gives you, you'd expect them to say McDavid breaks that record. That's a pretty impressive record. They didn't. They did at the end. They remembered at the end, oh, we should probably show this. But they didn't show that stat. Sportsnet, man, come on. But anyways, they did eventually show it. And they did show a really impressive stat that I will bring up after. But anyways, continuing with Connor McDavid. So in addition to his 4 points, he had a block, 4 takeaways, though he was abysmal in the faceoff circle, which kind of, for me, held him from being the first star, which goes to Stuart Skinner. I will be wearing the Stuart Skinner jersey I have for every game now. I almost trimmed my beard because it needs a trimming Saturday, and I ran out of time before the game. And then I realized that was a good thing because even though I'm not a player, it's more important for the players than the fans. But I'm like, well, might as well keep the beard because we're all superstitious idiots, and we ended up winning. The Oilers, it's the first time I've had a full beard, and it's also the first time the Oilers have been in the Stanley Cup Finals since I was a kid. So I'm not saying it's me. I'm not saying it's because I didn't shave my beard and threw on my Skinner jersey, but it could be me. If so, you're welcome, Oilers. I have to pull my weight here and there, but anyways. So let's talk about going forward. Going forward, how's Game 5 going to look? I think the Oilers have a great mentality. It's something I've been talking about every single time. Is I love their responses to each game when it comes to the interviews. I think their minds are in the right place. Connor McDavid said we got to go on a business trip to Florida and drag them back to Alberta. It's just one game. He says it doesn't matter if you score 8 goals or 1 goal. You just won 1 game. So they have the right mentality. And I know Skinner has the right mentality. I've loved his take on things. Apparently, after game or during Game 2, Gretzky was praising Stuart Skinner, and Stuart Skinner never heard or saw about it because he was too busy playing Mario Kart, which is how he calms down. Mario Kart doesn't calm me down, but good for him. So, I think the Oilers have absolutely the right mentality in pulling off a miracle here. Obviously, it's a little delusional thinking for me, but you have to be a little delusional to believe in miracles, because miracles do happen. So, obviously, they've got 3 more games to go. To do that, Florida has 3 chances to stop that from happening, with 1 at home. And I think everyone would have preferred them to win at home. I would prefer them winning at home than here in Edmonton, and I think their fans would too. And that's where the question is, because Oilers could have the perfect mentality going into this, but that's not all you need. Not only do you have to have the perfect mentality and execute it properly, but Florida has to have the wrong mentality in this thing. And I'm not like in their locker room. I'm not watching every single interview. So I'm not exactly sure where it's at. And wherever it's at right now, it could change. Florida is very used to having strong mentality from being underdogs. Right now, they are in the unfamiliar but respectful position of being the better team. Where they are, they're not really used to this. Could they buckle under the pressure of the Oilers coming back? Or will they say, okay, enough's enough, which they have done in the past. So let's get into some stats. One of the stats Sportsnet's brought up that I can't quote from the top of my head, but they brought up there was 3 times where the Oilers, under head coach Chris Knobloch, had a 3-game losing streak during the regular season. And after all 3 times, the Oilers would go on a winning streak. I think the first time they had 5 straight wins. Then they had 3 straight losses. Follow that up with I think 17 wins. Was that where we reached, or was it 16? I remember reading 16, but I felt like we had 17. Whatever. Still a lot of wins. And then once it happened again later in the year, the Oilers followed that up with 3 straight wins. Now, this is the first time the Oilers not only lost back-to-back games in the playoffs, but lost 3 straight games in the playoffs, and they responded by beating, arguably, well, not just arguably, but officially the best team in the Eastern Conference, 8-1. Depth scoring was very much alive. Depth scoring has actually been there for the Oilers the entire series. It's their stars that have not really been showing up. I don't mean Dallas stars. I mean McDavid, the top 6. You know, they did today. Draisaitl, I'm kind of like, he did have 2 assists, but that goal that was against, it's hard to blame on Skinner because Draisaitl and CC were dreadful. Draisaitl like 2 giveaways. I don't know if they're official giveaways because giveaways are counted. I don't know how they're counted, but 2 bad passes from Draisaitl in one shift. Eventually, CC results in a bad pass, and after those 3 bad passes, Tarasenko tips it in. It's a very impressive tip, and from Gustav Forsling, who I love, and I know Florida Panthers can tell you all about him, but I love Gustav Forsling. But anyways, that's more of how the Panthers scored, not so much of Skinner. So that is a bonus for Stuart Skinner in that, or maybe you could take the wrong way in that the one goal against was one that's pretty tough to stop. And I talk about with Skinner about, well, you got to make tough stops after a while, but he absolutely did this game too. And again, he made 2 where nobody would blame him on. Everyone was looking at the defense, so there was defense to see who to blame, and before we could realize it, Skinner had the puck because he made 2 amazing saves. I'm probably going to still glaze him a bit more because I love glazing goalies, especially when they have great mustaches, and especially when they are from Edmonton, and especially when they play for the Edmonton Oilers. But I think that should be enough for me on that mark. So just going forward, I want to talk about the history of the Oilers and the Panthers when they're in this scenario. I talked about the Oilers and their ability to come back from losing 3 straight. What we also see is once they figure out a team, it's over. The series is over. After 2 games with LA, they had them figured out. They won 3. I wouldn't say easily because one of those games LA destroyed Edmonton, but Skinner had LA figured out, so it didn't matter. So they won the game. Edmonton won the game anyways. With Vancouver, they were down 3-2. It took them longer to figure out Vancouver. It took them 5 games to figure out Vancouver. They won 2 of those, so they were still alive. But once they had them figured out, 6-7 happened, Oilers win. They move on. Play Dallas. Edmonton wins 1 game, so I think they haven't figured out, but Dallas responds correctly with 2 wins. And then Edmonton figures it out and goes on to win 3 straight, beating what everyone was calling a juggernaut. It's interesting how people are saying, well, Dallas Stars isn't a juggernaut. They lost to the Edmonton Oilers. You were just saying they were juggernauts right before the series, and now they're not because they lost to the Oilers? Can the Oilers not be a juggernaut? You know, I get that Sportsnet, glazes the Oilers too much. I agree, but, doesn't mean you can be an unnecessary hater. Come on. There's enough of those in the world. So, now again, Game 6 for Dallas was a better game by Dallas than it was for Edmonton, but Skinner at that point figured them out, and it feels like Skinner has figured out Florida, because the best part of Skinner's game isn't the talent he has, but his ability to foresee how offenses work. And once he gets that, once he's dialed in, of course that's what it is for all goalies, is being dialed in, but once he's dialed into your offense, it's pretty dang hard to stop him. The end of the LA series, he was amazing. He had a 33 save shutout. Vancouver, he struggled. He famously got pulled, and Picard had to play 2 games in which he was good, but once Skinner was back in, Vancouver had a very hard time beating him. And that was the same story for Dallas when Skinner nearly shut them out in Game 6. And Skinner nearly shut out Florida here. So that is one of the things. Is Skinner dialed into Florida's offense? We'll see. Maybe Florida changes up. Maybe if the Oilers win Tuesday night, Florida changes up. They figure out Skinner and they blow up for 5 goals. We'll see. But that is one thing going on in my mind. Also, when the Oilers have a stranglehold on how to beat a team, it's hard hard for teams to respond. Florida will have more time to respond because they still have 3 more lives, so to speak, when, LA also had that much time, but didn't work out for them. But by the time Edmonton figured out Vancouver, they only needed 2 more wins. By the time Edmonton figured out Dallas, they did actually also need 3 more wins. So never mind, that point is kind of moot. But you get what I mean. And you look, well, Florida. What are you saying, Isaac? Florida's won 3 games. Yes, and that is the most important thing. But when you look at Game 1 and Game 3, you think about how Edmonton actually outplayed Florida. This one was more tight, was pretty even in all areas except for where it matters most, which is conversion. Being able to convert your chances into, or PDO I should say, converting your chances, your shots into goals, and converting shots against into saves. Which is something Vancouver is great at, and what Florida has been good at. Even though Florida is great at controlling the game, they are also great at converting. It's something Edmonton has kind of been up and down on, but today was a great example of that. And where the shots were pretty dang even, Edmonton only had 2 more shots than Florida, but ended with having scored 7 more goals. So that is my line of thinking. I think there's a lot of trends we can think about where that could say Edmonton might actually pull this off. I've said this. I know other fans who've said this, and Stuart Skinner said this. If any team can do the reverse sweep, especially in the Stanley Cup Finals, it's the Edmonton Oilers. But the most important trend is reverse sweeps don't happen that often. Florida is a great team. They've been in this scenario before, not necessarily in the finals, but last year they had a 3-0 series lead on Toronto. They lose a game, and then they win the 5th game, eliminating Toronto. Earlier this year, in these playoffs, Florida had a 3-0 series lead on Tampa Bay. They were dominating Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a really good game, and I didn't destroy Florida in the same way Edmonton did, but it was a pretty clear Tampa Bay win to make it 3-1. Ooh, is reverse sweep going to happen? No, Florida immediately wins Game 5. So maybe that's the case here. Another part of this game is that speaking about mentality, is that I think it was more important for the Oilers and the Panthers to win this game. It was obviously incredibly important for the Panthers to win this game because it'd be their first Stanley Cup in franchise history, and I think the first Stanley Cup for not Tarasenko. I was going to say all the players on that team, but not Tarasenko. I know he's won one with St. Louis. I don't think anybody else there has, but correct me if I'm wrong. So it was obviously important to them, but it felt like it was more important for the Edmonton Oilers to not be swept in the finals, to prove they belong, and it was especially easier for them with that home crowd, who was seemingly just as loud for the 8th goal as they were for the first goal. I certainly was. So we'll see if that's just kind of if this game was more of a result of don't get swept kind of game than we want to reverse it. I don't think that's the case, but it could be the case. So Florida absolutely could respond. And going back to trends, of all the trends that make it look like, this could be the year where we see a reverse sweep, going back to the most important trend is that they don't happen often. The last time we saw it happen was in 2014 when the San Jose Sharks had a 3-0 series lead. I think it was in round 1, could have been round 2. LA wins 3 games. Game 7, San Jose takes a commanding lead, blows the lead. LA wins Game 7, goes on to win a cup. I don't remember if that was their first or second cup. 2014. I think that was their second cup. The only time it's ever happened in the Stanley Cup Finals, though, was in the middle of World War II, 1942. Nazi Germany was controlling France at this time. That's how long ago this has happened. That was when the Detroit Red Wings had a 3-0 series lead, and Toronto Maple Leafs won 4 straight to win one of their many Stanley Cups during the original 6 era. So that is, again, of all the trends I could name here and I could talk all I want about how the Oilers are really good once they figure out a team, how Skinner's are really good once he gets into the head of a team, about how Oilers are really good at responding to losing droughts this year, and they've overcome so much worse than this. It still doesn't happen much. The odds are still against the Oilers because they need to win 3. Florida just needs 1. That's it at the end of the day. I can be as excited and delusional as I want to be. I talked about how when we were down 2-0, I've never been more confident in a team that's down 2-0 in the series. I said the same thing to my friends going into 3, but into this last game, but I didn't want to say it publicly in case we got swept. I should have, obviously, because we did not get swept. Because there is something truly different about this team, this Oilers team, and just speaking about them is that the worst case scenario that can happen right now, and it seems like a lot of fans still have faith in them here, because we've seen them go through a lot worse, and because we are delusional as well. But the worst thing that can happen to the Oilers, realistically, because the worst thing obviously is if they all die in a plane crash. But the worst, which has happened actually to hockey teams. But anyway, my point is the worst thing that can realistically happen to the Oilers is that they get better next year. I think the Oilers, I'm not going to say the Oilers are going to return to the finals if they lose in this series, but I think they'll get pretty dang close. If they do pull it off, I don't think the Oilers will return. It takes a lot of emotional strength and health to go through what the Oilers have done this year and to pull off this. One of the greatest miracles in all of sports. But the Oilers have already pulled off a few miracles this year. I mean, it takes a miracle to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, so the Panthers aren't any strangers to miracles, especially since last year, what they did to the Boston Bruins. So I keep mentioning the Panthers because I am an Oilers fan, so I'm getting carried away about talking about the Oilers, but like I don't want to sound completely delusional. I know I'm going to be a little bit, but like I'm also a realist. I know how rare this happens, but at the same time, you can look at it. Oh, it means we're due for a reverse sweep in the finals. Anyways, that's it for me. I could talk about the knee-on-knee from Nurse and Sam Bennett. I don't freaking care. Yes, should have been a penalty because it happened. 2 minutes, sure. Should it have been 5? I don't know, because when the knee-on-knees have been happening this series, they've called it both ways. So, whatever. Would Florida having a 5-minute power play change the game? We have no idea, because the Oilers penalty kill not only scored, they were amazing. Maybe if they had 5 minutes, Oilers would have scored 2 shorthanded goals. I will say Sam Bennett, I don't like saying a guy embellished on a knee-on-knee, because knee-on-knee hits are dangerous. And I do respect Sam Bennett, but he did do something that a lot of players do. I want to say Florida Panthers are doing it more, but that might just be because I'm an Oilers fan, and I know Florida Panthers aren't the only team who does this. But Sam Bennett, he takes the knee-on-knee, he's on the ice looking at the ref, gets the call, struggles to the bench, and at first I was like, oh, he's embellishing, and then he struggles to the bench, I'm like, oh, never mind, no, he's definitely not embellishing. And the power play doesn't even finish in time, and he's back on the bench. Like, what was that all about? I know hockey players are tough and can play through pretty much anything, but like, at least make it a little more believable. I mean, I'm sure it hurt. No question it hurt. No question it's a penalty. I'm just saying, you do see this from hockey players. It's not just Sam Bennett. I think Luosterainen, some Oilers fans suspect that Luosterainen did it. I'm sure some Oilers players have done it. It would not surprise me. I know Florida Panthers aren't the only team who do it. This isn't the first time it's ever happened. It happens in a lot of finals, so it's just something I wanted to mention because I know that's going to be a controversy, but I honestly don't care. Yes, it was a penalty. 2 minute. I don't know if that should be a 2 minute or 5 minute call, but I know the refs have been calling those as both 2 minutes and 5 minutes, so whatever. 2 minutes is what it was. The fact that it was a 2 minute and not a 5 minute does not excuse the Florida Panthers from the fact that they allowed 8 goals when they probably should have won the game. Anyways, that's it for me. This was a really long review. I've been very focused on trying to reduce the amount of time I do reviews, but like, you can forgive me for being very excited about an 8-1 victory in the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay, this was the first time the Oilers have been in the Stanley Cup Finals since I was 6 years old. This is easily the most fun Oilers game I've ever watched. It will definitely go down in the memory banks for me. Hopefully it gets replaced because the Oilers lift the cups a few times. We'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Oilers certainly aren't. They're more focused on Tuesday night than what comes after. And the Panthers should be too. But again, we'll see. I can speculate all I want. Doesn't matter. We'll see what happens. I'd love to hear your speculation or read about your speculations down in the comment section below. While you're there, I'd love if you subscribe to the channel for more. I have some insights I'd love to do, some big statistical analysis insights I'd love to do when I'm not working and when it's not Father's Day. And also, like the video. Also on the video there, thank you to all those who made it this far, whether you're using me as white noise or information or whatnot. Thank you either way, anyway. Bye-bye for now.